Welcome, everybody, to our monthly Second Saturdays poetry reading. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Kerr, and I have the privilege of being your moderator for these monthly programs hosted by our poet laureate, Dr. Richard Bronson from Stony Brook University. We do start at 11 a.m. So we do, one of the changes out of COVID is poets have learned to be punctual, and we reward those who are here on time by starting on time. If you'd like to read one of your poems, we do have an open read. Please put your name in chat, and we will call upon you to read in the order that we see your names in chat. If you are chat challenged, Marvin, I've got a good memory. If you are chat challenged, we'll also find a way to make sure that you have an opportunity to read as well. Please keep your microphone muted. And J.R. Turek has a poem if you need to know why we mute your microphones. But please keep your microphone muted out of respect for your fellow poets. Feedback is a gift, so we do get feedback. Just send it. I have a very easy email, danielbkerr@Verizon, and whatever feedback we get, I regularly review that with Dr. Bronson and with Kathy Donnelly as well. Planned agenda for today, I'll get you all settled. I'll turn you over to Richard. He will introduce Weslea. Then we'll have the open read. We will bring Weslea back for an encore, and then we'll have concluding remarks from Richard. And also he will announce the next poet. I realize that you're here for poetry, not for evangelization, but I would say that this is one of the three major monthly outreach programs we host at All Souls. And we found that the poets also participate in these. So there is a monthly concert series. This is in the church, Saturdays at 6. Often I get calls, what time is the Saturdays at 6 concert? Rest assured it is at 6 o'clock. We've got a wonderful Spanish guitarist from Colombia who'll be playing music from Colombia and Argentina and Paraguay, Francisco Roldan, and that'll be on June 3rd. So if you're in Stony Brook on June 3rd, please join us. We do the Poetry Monthly. That's back when we did the poetry in the church. We've been doing these virtually since June of 2020. At some point, perhaps we'll return to the church, but you'll recognize the poets there in the picture. So we do these poetry readings monthly. I recognize that there are a lot of people here because of Weslea is here. Those folks joining us for the first time, please know that we do these things. You could set your watch by it, second Saturday of every month at 11 o'clock. We also do Native American drumming once a month, and that's the fourth Thursday of every month. Once a year, we bring together all the outreach programs, and we do something called Conversations on the Sacred. So there are sacred poems that are selected by Carmen Bugan and our Native American drummer. And those poems are read by various poets. You'll see Bruce there in the front row, and you'll recognize other poets there. You'll also see our Native American drummer in the back. You'll see Kathy and her smiling face there as well. So we have the sacred poems. They are read by local poets. And the students in the back, the tall fellow there right by the under the stained glass window, he and his partner do classical music in between. So there's a musical interlude. And also our Native American drummer, you'll see him there with the headband. He also does drumming as well. So mark your calendars for that. You're welcome to join us. That's Saturday, August 5th. And the last thing I'll mention before I turn it over to Richard, once a year, and we're going into the 15th year now, we do a 5K race, 2K walk to celebrate the role of All Souls in the community, and also to raise funds to make the church accessible. Those of you who are familiar with the church know it's at the top of a hill. And back when Gladys Henderson was our poet laureate, she had to stop hosting because she couldn't make it up the hill. So we are mindful, our mission statement says we meet people where they are, but we're mindful of the fact that there are people who like to join our programs that can't make it up the stairs. So this accessibility project benefits from the proceeds. We have people who run, people who walk. There's a small registration fee, and also we have sponsors for that event. We've raised over $75,000 so far for that. And there is a group each year, one of our favorite groups that walks. So far, no runners, but you'll recognize the people in the picture. There is a group called the Live Poets Society, and they walk each year in the race. So mark your calendars for that. That's Sunday, October 1st. And with that, I will turn it over to Richard. Richard, they're all yours.
Okay, just unmuted. Well, welcome everyone to the second Saturday reading at All Souls. As I say each time, I always look forward to this event very much. And I'm looking forward to hearing Weslea Sidon. I've picked two poems to read this morning, one by myself and one by Mary Oliver. The first poem, it posits the idea that could aging be an infectious disease? And I coin a new word. It comes from medicine, chronophage. Phages are really viruses that actually kill bacteria, and people are thinking of using them to treat people who are ill. And chronos refers to time. So I'll read the poem as an epigraph. It's called The Time Eaters, because chronophages eat time. And there's an epigraph from George Bernard Shaw from Back to Methuselah. We have to live here forever. Think of what forever means. What sets the internal clock of species, regulates the rapid beat of rodents, slow pendulum stroke of pachyderms. A dog is born, dies in the breath of the boy's years. I search skeletal remains of millennium men, an archaeology of bone, the cyclic give and take of osteoblast, osteoclast, confirm the biblical chronologies as arboreal rings mark seasons of sequoias. In ancient DNA, a taxonomy of telomeres, I found the answer. A retrovirus presence, the chronophage, passed through generations. In the cave of the patriarchs, a wind out of Eden touched my face. Quarantined in their garden, Adam and Eve lived eternal lives, caught mortality, the slow descent to untimely death when they departed into the world. And the next poem is one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. I just came across it last week reading one of her books. It's called The Summer Day. The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I think that tells all of it there, basically, in that one poem. Anyway, let's move on. I'd be happy to introduce Weslea. I joined the LIPC about a year or two. She was very active in it before she left Long Island. And I was really surprised that she was living in Seal Cove, Maine, because it's one of my destinations. Each summer, at the end of the summer, we go up to the area around Mount Desert Island, and actually Southwest Harbor. So I know the place. So Weslea is a well-known poet to Long Island, and her poems have appeared in numbers of journals, Poemanak poems, and pictures of Long Island, et cetera, et cetera. She's a column, appeared regularly, permanently from Away in Face magazine for 2 years. And basically, which I didn't know, she teaches guitar privately, and I know she's had a creative writing group for a long time, for many years. And I welcome her to Second Saturday Reading, and looking forward very much for hearing her poetry. Thanks so much for being here, Weslea.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is quite an honor. I will be thanking Kathy later again when I read a poem that was published in the last Poemanak. I'm going to acknowledge Mother's Day, which, like many, many people, is an extremely hard day for me, having lost my mother very young. I actually sent my sister a trigger warning when I decided what poems I would be reading today. So I'm going to start with one called Perigee Moon that appeared in my first and so far only book. Perhaps someday there'll be another. Perigee Moon. The spent glower of an old cat lingers, yellow, in the opal night. Ivy rustles with a squirrel's leap from locust to dead sassafras to wizening hemlocks to air. My mother would have liked this yard, considered it a proper fit, cleaned it up without asking permission, but without complaint, sat in the rubble and told some racy anecdote that would twist and tangle like berry hedge, buffering evanescent truth against the winds of fact and fiction. We must have seen the moon together when she took me out at dawn to walk off my insomnia, when we followed frozen streams to twilight haunts. But I have no memories, no sagas of her winter skies. Still, it is this sky that brings her. Perigee moon scattering reflections through ivy, through hemlock, chill air exposing a tenderness long withheld, lingering now almost within reach. And this is another one in that series, white t-shirt. I don't wear them because I can only see my mother's slim body, beautiful legs, and one of my father's freshly washed. She was dying. I did not know it then. I know it now, and the memory stings because she was so beautiful and so preciously young. If we could ask, she might say she left to let us become more of who we were. She might say the Buddha told her that, just as she is telling us. She might say the leaving was too hard, but she didn't believe it was right, but it wasn't her choice after all, Buddha or no. She might say it worked out well enough since here we are talking about her, but she might say it would be better if she could jump in and correct a few things. She might say she loved us. She might. And she might say we shouldn't have to ask. She might say the dialogue continues on both sides. This one is called Bird Count, Mother's Day. I have the actual privilege of having bird feeders very, very close to my front door with a glass panel in it, so I can stare at it a lot, and I do. I probably spend much more time looking out that window than anybody should who wants to get anything done, but I do. So bird count, Mother's Day. One cardinal, one dove, sputtering over the same ground, a white-throated sparrow, a chickadee, a junco, another dove, each one selecting their best seed, biological imperative at work, live, reproduce, live, reproduce. The thieving squirrel is above the feeder, chattering squirrel threats at me and the cat. My murderous thoughts are tempered by her babies under the porch. Yesterday, the supermarket was full of flowers and displays of cakes with over-iced wishes. The women shopping had carts full of breakfast foods and a week of dinners, as usual. I stand at the window, as usual, counting birds, ignoring years. And while we're on birds, one of the things that Maine, which, moves at a slightly slower pace, but we track the arrival and departure of birds. And about 3 weeks ago, I got a notice that hummingbirds had been spotted entering Maine. And I hung up my hummingbird feeder, and about a week later, one tiny little guy showed up. And so this is called Hummingbird, and I want to thank Kathy Donnelly again. This is one of the poems that appeared in the last Palmanac transition, those gorgeous, gorgeous anthologies that just make me weep every time I look at them. Anyway, hummingbird. I hear the hummingbird as I weed by the feeders, feel the force of his wings percussing the air. The seconds when our tasks coexist, his necessary, mine only seeming so, swell with portent, with dreams of flight. I hope for a glimpse as he flies away, the wonder of his red throat, the marvel of his size. Listen until his sound is merged with the rustling of the woods. Moving a little closer to spring. Richard mentioned first and forever, I think, in that poem, and this one has both. It's called First. I found the first violet, the first crocus, the first bee, the first maple sprouts massed in the compost pile. The first time I kissed my first husband, I wondered if anything lasted forever. And when he died, I thought I knew for the first time what forever asked. By now, I've stopped wondering. Answers change like calendars, like waistlines, like snow gathered on a city street. Like the first violet, first crocus, the first and always kiss, first arrow from the quiver of first light. And this is a different kind of mother. It's called The Mother Lode. From the road, if you can see it at all, the Forsythia mound we call the Mother Lode is only thin branches, homely and fragile. No sense of anything able to break into bud, into bloom. It will. Buds will swell, covert yellow will become certain. The gloomy woods will be spotlit with sun-bright clusters, impervious to late cold and April wind. The house that was there so long ago is an occasional foundation stone. We tramp through brambles, snow, mud to show newcomers where to look, where to get in, to pinch gangly branches to nurse at home. The small bits we've dug and planted tell our neighbors we plan to stay. We like to say our Forsythia came from the Mother Lode, as if we too were here all along. Well, it's Tomato Day on Long Island Monday. Those of you might know it, May 15th. Not in Maine. In Maine, it's closer to June 15th, but I do garden as much as I possibly can. This is called Garden Adventures. Cut the row of lovage to be frozen. Try this year to remember that it is there in the freezer, that you fed it and weeded it and felled over it to everyone's annoyance. Try to use it up before the power outage, the inevitable one, takes everything except the urge to hoard vegetables in the freezer in neat little packages with calligraphic labels to broadcast good intentions. 2, a garden brings out the perverse. Don't let it fool you into thinking all that is wisdom and healing. Think about what you do to the earwigs. Speak softly of the slugs you slip into salt. Whisper the fate of grubs you add to the brew. Whine to the worm cut in half by your spade. Muse about the nest of moles evicted by the tiller. 3, the borage took over the lettuce bed. The bees took over the borage. The pumpkin vines covered the strawberries. The crows ate the corn seed. The deer ate just kale. The slugs ate the mulch. A pretty good year. When I was very young, I had a light up planetarium, the kind that had little teeny holes punched in a dome. So you put a bulb in it and it showed you the space on your ceiling. And at that time, I knew all the constellations, and you could see a fair amount more of the sky when I was growing up in Brooklyn, if you sat on the roof, than you can now. But anyway, I am still very, very interested in what's out there. So my mother makes a cameo appearance in this poem, which was written not long after the Hubble sent back its first images of the universe at the beginning of time, or our time. I see the baby universe on my iPad. Space holds all the evidence. We are taught that now. If ever it shone, it shines still. My mother envisioned all sound remaining, pulsing in the air, lingering in the vacuum. They might find us, if they are out there, by our drifting words or songs. Or if not find us, know us. So be careful when you speak. I heard a commentator say, wow, the universe has gotten older, as if the universe were a distant cousin's kid come to visit on college break. How else to think? All our relations, all our words are stardust out there waiting to be called to a witness box or back to the table. Now the baby universe, first exploding into beingness, is captured by telescopes in dialogue with computers generating images with discrete edges, color-coded to evoke spectrum. A universe the size of an egg shines up from a machine the size of a sandwich. It stares up at me, and I back at it, amazed. And of course, when James Webb launched, I watched the entire launch. It was thrilling. This poem refers to a phrase, the local universe, which I first read in a book by Carlo Rovelli about physics, and the local universe is, I guess, what we call the universe that is our universe, having the assumption, of course, that there are many others that we don't know about, don't see. So James Webb takes flight. Our local universe grows. The unknown becomes a destination. The destination becomes an event with consequence unknown. We seek the proof that what we want to know is worthy. Our local universe has peopled our imagining with beings unlike us. And now we need to know the what, if not the who. We hope we are not alone. We hope we are. All right, so COVID, you can't really ignore COVID. COVID was, I have to say, pretty good to me. I had a wonderful, wonderful last year working at the high school as an ed tech, doing one-to-one instruction entirely from home, which I loved. As now, although I'm not going to show you, I spent my entire year barefoot in this room, and it was just lovely. But anyway, these are a couple of COVID poems. First one is called Not Yet Winter. It didn't snow, but the rain is colder and has no color. A stealth wind slithers from bay to meadow, finds refuge in the forest floor. I watch the island ferry, just a bale of soft light, glide from one corner of my horizon. We are all islands now, waiting on a ferry, waiting on a different morning, cold in the rain, looking to see where twigs have blown, if trees are down. This one is called Quarantine Road Trip. A lot of my poems, I'm sure, like a lot of your poems, poets who are there, and I know most of you are, poets, that is, tend to conflate in order to get what we want out of a poem. This one, I want to say every single word is true. A rare occurrence for me. Quarantine road trip. Wave to each mailbox and street sign. Wave to the lake and to the boulder on the shore. Wave to the cable wires. Say thank you for working. Drift to the shoulder. Get out and count the lupin sprouts. Say hello to the bees. Talk to the ants. Wish on a dandelion. Examine a pebble. Throw it at the empty barn. Get in. U-turn. Wave. We did have it a little easier. Those of us who live in the country, some of you in suburbia as well, but we did have the opportunity to get alone outside and not have to worry about anything. And I took mini walks, no matter what the weather was, almost every day. And I got to see a piece of my property that I rarely get to look at closely, because in the warm weather, it's covered with brambles and is just very hard to get through. And there is no poem about this, but it was such a wonderful experience. So I'm poking around, I'm just looking up, I'm looking around, and I see a fairly large bird's nest that is lined with a plastic bag. And the plastic bag is sticking out from under all of the twigs and woven right up through the top, and just like little fingers of plastic bags sticking out. Someday there'll be a poem about it, but it's a poem all its own, so I guess it doesn't need me. Anyway, moving out of COVID into winter. This one is called Night Voice. It's not exactly winter, it's more a winter of the soul, but that's coming up in the next poem too. Night Voice. In the night, a voice and not a voice is droning. This empty dream space has no dimensions, no here, no there, no me, no not me. It is the privilege of dreams to be nowhere and no one. And once awake, I crave that privilege to know all and tell nothing, to say nothing and tell all. The voice and not voice follows the waking into working, into dinner, into the book I hoped would swallow me, into a sleep that waits to hear. And this one is one of the many poems that I've been writing lately about aging. Despite the fact that I'm in constant age denial and I still color my hair and blah, 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 I'm very conscious of how old I am, how old my friends are, how old my husband is. And there are days when that's a wonderful knowledge and days when it's really a terrifying knowledge. And this is a poem about that. Another dream of your death. My tears escape in the shock of waking, fall in silence through the dark morning. These dreams nag like mean friends, pull me from sleep, keep me from sleep, leave me desolate and so very weary. I don't need the dreams to be afraid. We are old and our luck may not hold. Our lives are small waves ready to break on sun-warmed rocks, to ebb in a whisper unnoticed by the sea. I reach for you as you sleep beside me. Touch a shoulder or arm. Listen to the breath. Listen for a breath. Love, oh love. There are nights when I lie awake, willing my heart to beat forever for both of us. Okay, and these last two are for all of the writers out there. I know that you are writers, so. And you can only read your writing poems to a room full of writers. You can't, nobody else really cares about them. So I'm taking this opportunity to read my writing terrors to you and hope that you can understand. This one is called The Page. The page has abandoned passive aggression. It does not lie in silence. It dares words to face the consequences of appearing. The page has declared war. Words dissolve, transmogrify, shape shift. Rogue waves erupt, the page ignites, becomes smoke, becomes steam, becomes last night's wind. The page is armed and armored. Letters shatter like clay pigeons. Ideas don't stand a chance. And this one, I know from what so many of my fellow poets have told me that we all worry that this poem is the last poem forever. And so far it's turned out not to be true, but of course there will come that day when it is. This one is called, and this is the last one I'll read before I look forward to hearing you all read. All my ideas are dead. Their corpses lie about the garden or float around me, making ghastly demands. A few show signs of struggle, bashed in the oddest places, full of holes, innards exposed. A few are finely dressed, on their way to cocktails or a tea dance in the pergola. I rifle the pockets of a shop-worn suit, looking for a change of heart. I lift a sequined hem, hoping an inspiration was hidden there for safety. A diamond-clad, dismembered hand drops by, gives me the finger. At night, I hear them singing phantom songs. So thank you again for this wonderful privilege, and I look forward to hearing the readers.
That was wonderful, Wesley. Just such range, such beautiful tributes to your mother. Yeah, from the first poem where you know your mother would have approved of your yard and describing her so lovingly and wearing the T-shirt, and the admission that you spend far too much time looking at the birds. I think we could all identify that. The arrival, I knew Maine was a unique place. I didn't know that they made such a big deal about the arrival of the hummingbirds. I think we can all feel and treasure that first kiss that you described. Never thought of her for Cynthia in the way that you've described it, as establishing you've always been there. And my God, you know, there's a stream where you were looking at the birds and you thought about the sinister squirrels, but then you remember the squirrels with the babies. So you empathize with the squirrel, and then you reminded us with the garden adventure about that poor worm that was caught in two as well. And thinking of the universe as an old relative that calls, and just beautiful, the taking time in COVID, you know, to walk and wave to the ants, and that image in the night voice about being swallowed by a book, hoping to be swallowed by a book. I mean, that's something we can all feel. And you're sharing about the fear of death and getting older and so forth. Just a wonderful, and that the second last poem that you did there about the page being armed and dangerous. I mean, we could all empathize with that. So well done. We look forward to the encore.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to change gears now a little bit. So let me call back up my screen. Most of you know these rules. So we're going into the open read. Please remember to wait for, if you want to read, put your name in chat. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've already got 15 or 16 of you that want to read. So if you haven't put your name in chat and you want to read in, just put your name in chat. Please, only one poem, and please no more. Most of the poems are short, thankfully, but please no more than 5 minutes. Keep your microphone muted until you're actually called upon. And I will announce the people who read in groups of 3, so you won't be surprised. And we scheduled to go to 12. You know, my guess is we'll flex a little bit. We'll probably go to about 12:15. But everyone who wants to read will get an opportunity to read. Okay, so first group I'm going to call upon, again, in groups of three. So Don Billings, you see I was able to change your name, Don. I learned a new trick on the screen. So Don Billings, followed by Chris, followed by Victoria. So Don, over to you. You could turn your mic or your poem.
Good morning, everyone. I'm from Seattle today. Am I coming through clear?
Yes, you are. You're fine, Don.
Okay. This is a comment on our times, and it's called, "What's Your Story?" Hey, what's your story? I was in Manhattan one day, and I saw a man picking through the garbage to get something to eat. And I was wondering, what about his life that led him to that point? And we all have a background, and this poem is about different types of backgrounds and what it leads to, you know. Anyway, hey, what's your story? I'm a latchkey kid, acquainted with the street. I wear thrift store clothes, getting not too much to eat. Single parent food stamps, free lunch at school, smell of urine in the hallway, trash in the street. Communal filth seems to be the rule. I'm that other kid, always well dressed. 2 cars in the driveway. We're so blessed. Good schools, sports, music, all the right stuff. With the right coaching, I'll be off to an Ivy. We have so much, yet we never have enough. Now, I've always lived in a mansion, servants, plenty of money, always all the best. Daddy bought me fancy schools, bone-spurred deferment, no military service for me. I would rather play. I'm that spoiled rich kid. I always get my way. A comment on our times. Thank you.
Well done. Okay, Chris with a K, over to you.
Can anybody hear me?
You are loud and clear.
Okay. My name is Chris Janvier, and I'm from Baldwin, New York. So I'm in Long Island. And my poem is called He's Going Nowhere. 12:06 a.m. is what it says when the black colon constantly blink from the digital clock on the dashboard while it's glowing green. The aquamarine digital number, tap in on the audio system. It reads 01. He hears the acoustics of the CD player clicking and clacking the edge of the disc that he burned 30 songs in. The first bass drop, and he's already anticipating for the beat drop after the next 3 basses. And thus the instrumental began. Crunk Ain't Dead by Duke Deuce. His dark brown eyes started to dilate, exposing his optic nerve to the street lights, LED signs from clubs, tail lights from trucks, hashback, etc. He's pushing the gas. He's revving up his O2 Maxima GLE, speeding on Merrick Road. His veins are popping up. His heart rate is increasing by the minute. His heart rate is increasing by the minute, increasing by the minute. His face is grimacing. Those 2 red sticks from the black odometer is passing these light orange numbers until it hit 90 mph at 7,000 RPM on 3rd gear automatically. but he's not paying attention. He's gripping the wheel, driving straight, and bopping his head aggressively. Whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, hi-hats, 808s, drums, and snares, all looped up in one measure at a time. The speaker blew steam, and the smoke of the musical note started to percolate from the power windows and doors, contaminating the ambiance of the quiet streets, and the ambience of the car was destroyed in the inside. 2 minutes has gone by, and Nowhere Man by the Beatles started to play. The band started to sing the hook, and he turned his head to the right, staring at the reflection of himself and his gray Maxima with 2 specks of light from the lampposts and 2 streaks of light on the chrome alloy wheel that's spinning on Merrick Road. From the window of a dark, closed, Black-owned barbershop, he had no ears, no lips, no hair, and no skin. But where was he going? Nowhere. Thank you.
This was quite a ride. Okay, over to Victoria.
Hi, I'm going to be reading White Dress on a Clothesline, which is from my new book called Glimpse. White Dress on a Clothesline. Who has left this delicate cotton cloth, hand sewn with care to fit a young girl's shape, with its small white buttons, its white lace collar pinned at the shoulders, on this worn clothesline behind this empty farmhouse? The cloth is thin and made for dense summer days, when this tree above would have been fertile green, when there would have been birds singing, a song for rising, a song for resting, a song by which to wander, a song to call the children home. More empty than the broken chairs on the collapsing porch, this abandoned house will soon be embraced by wild, come to claim, consume, console. One day it will call this cotton dress with its blue satin ribbon about the waist to rejoin the brown earth. This empty white dress, uplifted and released, ascending and descending in the chilly breeze.
Thank you, Victoria. Well done. Okay, Deborah, followed by Wendy, and then Stephen. So Deborah, over to you, please.
Thank you. The heart acts involuntarily, chanting a barely audible prayer. It cannot resist the pull of the moon. Hawthorn, ginger, and cinnamon magnetize the striated muscles. Only 4 of the heart's many chambers can be rendered visible. It breaks and heals infinitely. When it shuts, like a clenched fist or a tight bud, you must prime it like a pump, teach it to flow freely. Sit under the cherry tree and count the petals as they blow away. This time next week, there will be no trace of them. Open your hand. Let go of the blossom you've been holding on to. You must find a new metaphor. Pink confetti flutters to the ground.
Thank you, Deborah. Well done. Okay. Wendy, over to you.
I have to apologize for stepping aside for a while. Okay, thank you. Thoughts and prayers. It felt like a normal day. Dropped him off at school, promised to be back after football practice. Now she stands in the glow of hundreds of candles, a vigil for the murdered children. A wreath with her son's name hangs on the fence. Hundreds of ribbons blow in the wind. Cards which will never be read lay on the ground. All those gathered offer thoughts and prayers. What value when her son is gone? Graduations she will not go to, a wedding that will not be, grandchildren never to be born, yet she must go on. You claim it is your right. Was it really worth her son's life? Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Very timely. Stephen, over to you. Stephen. Give him a second. There you go, Stephen, you're on.
Right. One poem, but two very brief prefatory remarks. I have known, admired, and adored Weslea since we were in our 20s. Somebody else do the math, please. Secondly, I love Maine. Jesus. And here's my poem. It's called Statement. The spacious jewel of a single deep breath on a crystal morning of a mint-struck day, or taut autumn afternoon, or awash in the soft and riotous breezes of summer's evening. Just to be alive at all, culture twisting without end, intrigue of meaning, vibrato of life, the ravishment of a single strawberry. I rejoice against my instructions in the world of movement and bodies and things. Orphaned now on the globe and alone with it, I drink the planet's water, piss it back, and if ephemeral, I am whole or nearly so. So here I live, a pinprick on this sprawling asphalt scab, backaches and root canals, the serial rebellion of the body, friends in dire trouble, grievous losses to Uncle Death, the dog next door incessantly barking, and the prick who owns it called neighbor. The variegated contents of the world in anguished and precarious balance, machine guns and languages, cesspools and prize roses, Dachau and St. Francis, Dante and children with cancer, Nobel Prizes and beheadings, populations rotting dead on the ground, the little girl burned by the side of the road, first loves, miracles of salvation, lives of hell. Still, that dirty street, this clean window, that bird slanting the sky, the sheer particularity of each, the utter suchness of it all, apparently forever. Shopping in a shopping center this day, drenched in the real, which isn't. Hey, that guy's actually walking over there. So unworried at last, indemnified against fear, and ever nearer the frontier of myself being over, now I have time for eternity. With the horror unforgotten, what are mine, what is mine are these: friends, exertions, corner songs in the corners of the morning. I walk down the days of my life, beatitude and opulent glory. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have, next group of three is Emily Sue, followed by Paul, followed by Dan Kerr. Emily Sue, over to you.
Hey, well, Weslea, this was a fabulous reading. Thank you so much. And I'm going to read one called The Work to Be Done. So many things to save: the planet, the republic, plant life, animal life, all lives threatened by a virus. The sun, the moon, the stars bear witness to dreams left simmering on the stove too long ago to be remembered, but not quite forgotten in the rushing river of distraction, deflection, and insurrection. Charred remains of promises tossed out the back door, where smoke dissipates along with the intention to map an escape route. Calamity's spiral has stretched across millennia, while ever more ingenious tools render the earth malleable, mutable, enabling wars to be waged by the light of a computer screen, removed from the screams and the stench of death. Jealousy, cruelty, greed, and insatiable hunger for power persist like roaches and rats, their skeletons preserved in ancient fossils, ancient stories. No matter how fast life spins or how complex the next invention, no buttons, knobs, or dials open hearts wide enough to walk us over glass in the shredded shoes of a sister or brother whose mother we've never met.
Oh,
Thank you, Emily Sue. Okay, Paul, over to you.
Thank you. I, like Daniel, have known Weslea and admired her since we were in our 20s. And thank you, Dan, for giving me this opportunity to hear her. And this is a haiku I wrote this week. It's called Allergy Haiku. Okay? 5 days in labor, pushing to give birth to spring by blowing my nose. That's it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, please keep your microphone muted if you're not reading. We're getting a little bit of background noise. Okay, so our next poet is Dan Kerr. And again, you're here for poetry, not for evangelization, so I don't talk too much about the church. But our mission statement says we meet people where they are. It's nice to have a mission. We say we're all on a spiritual journey and you meet people where they are. So one of the things we do there is we do a Tuesday interfaith morning prayer service, and we invite clergy from all different denominations. So last Tuesday, we had a priest from the Greek Orthodox Church. We've had an Imam Ibn Abdullah from the Selden Mosque. We've had Rabbi Benson from the Port Jefferson Jewish Center. And I recently invited a Buddhist monk as well. And it reminded me of a poem I wrote a few years ago that was inspired by the very special relationship that Desmond Tutu from South Africa, the late Desmond Tutu, had with the Dalai Lama. And this poem is called Dancing with the Dalai Lama. And it goes as follows. Dancing with the Dalai Lama. Not wanting to piss off China, South Africa did not allow the Dalai Lama to attend Desmond Tutu's 80th birthday party. Never willing to be bullied by powerful cowards, Bishop Tutu flew to India to celebrate the 80th birthday of his friend, an Anglican bishop and a Buddhist monk, two octogenarians not afraid to speak truth to power. As the elderly bishop disembarked the plane, the Dalai Lama hugged his friend and knocked off his bishop's hat. "Why do you always knock off my hat?" the bishop asked. The Dalai Lama said, I like you more when you smile, and too many religious leaders never smile. You are mischievous, Your Holiness, and you are mischievous too, the Dalai Lama said, when you confronted those burning tires around the necks of informer, when you blessed the wedding of your daughter to another woman, when you led the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and you told all South Africans they must forgive the perpetrators of horrible crimes. As they gathered round a birthday cake with 80 candles, Bishop Tutu said with a Cheshire grin, "Blow out the candles, Your Holiness." No matter how hard the Dalai Lama blew, the candles would not go out. The bishop had seen to it with the reigniting candles he put on the cake. You are mischievous, Bishop Tutu, and you are mischievous too, Your Holiness. When you made that arduous journey to exile to India 60 years ago, when you told your people to pray for the oppressive Chinese, when you told the Chinese government that they would have no choice in deciding whether you were reincarnated as a god or a cockroach. Every time you use your exile as a forum to impact the world and do good, you are mischievous, Dalai Lama. 2,000 Tibetan children in exile sang "Happy Birthday" and "We Are the Children" as the Dalai Lama danced for the first time in his whole life, mimicking the well-honed boogie of his African friend. Two old friends embraced and shared their joy. as a reporter asked, "How can you be so joyful when the world is so sad? And you both have suffered so much in your 80 years filled with oppression." The Dalai Lama and the bishop both smiled and spoke in one voice. "Buddhism, Christianity, and neuroscience teach us three things we all must do to experience joy. Let go of hurts, focus on things to make the world a better place, and always, always make an effort to help others." South Africa is free, and someday Tibet will be too. These three simple rules guide these Tibetan children singing so beautifully today and should guide all of us as well. Okay, next we have Herb, followed by JR, and then Maggie.
Okay. Yeah, ready to go. Okay. For my late mother, Mom, and my late wife, Lorenda, happy Mother's Day. The blessing of light was always with you. Light outside and light within. Sunlight shone upon you and warmed your heart till it glowed like a great peat fire, so that even strangers might come and warm themselves by it. A blessed light shone out of your two eyes, like a candle set in two windows of a house, bidding the wanderer to come in out of the storm. You always gave a kindly greeting to those whom you passed as you went along the roads. The blessing of rain, the sweet, soft rain, fell upon you so that little flowers sprung up to shed their sweetness in the air. The blessings of the earth, the good, rich earth, were with you. Now the earth will be soft when you rest upon it, tired at the end of the day. The earth will rest easy over you as, at the last, you lie under it. The earth will rest so lightly over you that your spirit will be out from under it quickly and up and off and on its way to God. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Beautiful tribute. JR.
Good morning. Happy
Morning.
Lord. Thank you, Wesley. Geez, the white t-shirt. That's my mom, and I never wear white t-shirts too. So I'm celebrating Dog Speak, 24 poems written in a 24-hour poetry marathon, and I am supporting North Shore Animal League, the world's largest no-kill animal shelter right here on our line, Long Island. So welcome to Long Island again, Wesley. I'm going to ask you to play poetry roulette and pick a number from 1 to 24, and that is what I will read.
You got to turn your mic on if you want to share.
Okay, 12.
Thank you. That's what I'll read. Okay, hour 12. Naming. These are in the voice of dogs. Keep that in mind. Naming. Adam wasn't around when I got here, and besides, he probably ran out of names long ago. So I came here, rescued from an unspeakable place, sans name. They called me Cutie and Smoochy Puppy, but mostly they called me No, and Loud, and Often. I thought my name was No, but then they started calling me Bad Puppy, Out, 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 and Not on the carpet. I was just glad to have a happy home. They hugged me a lot, held me on their lap when we watched TV, but I wasn't allowed to sleep with them in the bed. I had to sleep in my room. When they started calling me Doodle, I ignored them. I already had several names and wasn't looking for another. It was hard to keep track. In time, No stopped. Out, 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 disappeared in the backyard somewhere, and they pulled up all the carpet. Now that I'm a little older, I just have one name. Doodle not on the new tile. Thank you.
They are, well done. Okay, Maggie, over to you.
Thank you. Wesley, that was just beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to see and hear everybody today. This is a pantoum. It's called My Mother's Vanity. I went into your room, though I was forbidden, opened the magical drawer to solve the mystery. Though I was forbidden, my eyes widened at the sight to solve the mystery, be privy to the secret. My eyes widened at the sight, lipsticks, rouges, polishes, pencils of kohl, be privy to the secret, swooning to mingling aromas. Lipsticks, rouges, polishes, pencils of kohl, powdered with rosy dust, swooned to mingling aromas, fragrance of you, powdered with rosy dust. I clumsily put on the rouge, the lipstick, fragrance of you. This is the me I will become. I clumsily put on the rouge, the lipstick, tissued telltale fingers. This is the me I will become, the me of you. Tissued telltale fingers. Open the magical drawer. The me of you went into your room.
Thank you, Maggie, for opening that wonderful magical drawer. Okay, in chat, we have two more readers. So Karen Schulte and Kathy Donnelly, but Kathy always likes to do last. So let's go with Karen, and then we'll see if there are any others, and then we'll go to Kathy. So Karen, over to you.
Thank you. I am going to read a poem that I wrote approximately a year ago at the start of the war in Ukraine. The poem is called A Death in the Ukraine, May 2022. It was shocking to view, even though it was hard to turn away. That picture of a dead woman fallen near her kitchen table, one gloved hand held out, Marion strings attached to nothing, the other clenched by her side, her coat wrapped around a shroud in the making when all about her sepia shades of darkest gray, outlines of her life as she last lived it, her coffee maker, boxes of tea, containers of food and spices, her body bathed in the photographer's radiant light, the camera's flash capturing the futility of her death in a place like any other, her home with its stove, countertop, cloth-covered table, sink full of dishes to be washed, a door's handle to an outside garden with its marigolds, cabbage, lettuce, squash, blood-laced trellis, bone marrow, heart, sinew, tissue, skin to lace up neatly in a bundle, its winding cloth placed in the ground, strewn with leaves and slender branches of willow, placed there with reverence this springtime when silence is a blessing.
Thank you, Karen. I see why you won first place in the Babylon Village Arts Council contest.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just remembered that we had Marvin with us. And Marvin, if you would like to read, you're welcome. Marvin, you still, there you go. Marvin, you got to turn on your mic if you want to read. Should be down near the bottom where you turn on your camera. There you go, Marvin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's called The Girl Up There. The girl on the porch would look down on us, we thought. So we had to rise to the level of a put-down gaze by riding without hands, feet pumping the wheels, cycles of endless shows before the teen majesty of our desires, standing on the seat, turning over it, getting off and on, while the Schwinn careened down the block, a bronco that would yield to our hormonal rush. We could control the arc of our fun, but not evoke a smile, a nod, a sigh from the girl on the porch who stood, a queen of our hearts, viewing us disdainfully, while we sad jokers, enthralled perhaps by the distance of longing, rode on to the realm of maybe.
Well done, Marvin. That was worth waiting for. Okay. All right, let's just check around the gallery. Anyone else who wants to read before we close with Kathy? Up, there we go. James, go ahead. Turn your mic on.
There we go. When sand on my toes, all his sin and trouble shows. It must have been Santos.
Thank you. Short but punchy, short but punchy. Okay. Anyone else in the gallery? Going once, going twice. Kathy, you get the last poem. Or the encore.
So just a quick thank you, Wesley, for taking this time out of your morning. Congratulations on your first and only book. I'd like a copy, and also I'm sure there's many more books inside of you. So look forward to all of them. I just wanted to say, you know, you brought up some interesting things. Evicted moles by the tiller. I could visualize that, and I burst out laughing, but of course you don't hear that because I'm on mute. I'm sorry for your mom. I thought you were holding back tears. I'm sure that you were actually very heartfelt for sure. And rain has no color. That's fantastic. You know, when I hear completely original lines, it's just so amazing, you know, that, and such an interesting line. They stick with me. So I'm going to read this poem. And I want to say also, before I hang up here, Richard will be passing the twig on to the next poet laureate next month. Yeah, I hope, Richard, that you'll have time to join us, despite, you know, not being in that position. But, you know, you have been so incredibly wonderful in this role. I can't thank you enough. Always here, even early, wonderful, you know, even always the same temperament, the same mood, gentle and even. You've been fantastic. I thank you so very much. All right, to the poem. You're welcome. This is a poem I called Simplicity. And it struck me to read this poem because I'm going through a lot of transitions. And one of them is that I will retire from my position at Stony Brook Hospital after 40 years. So this is about a gentleman and looking at it through the eyes of another. It's called Simplicity. Each morning sun brings light into a room with open curtains, shines through eyelids still shut tight, unmade bed abandoned, its sleepers soap off layers of night. Bread pops from a toaster, coffee percolates, eggs sizzle in a pan, silverware clinks, dishes clack, the sound of morning. High above the kitchen countertop, a clock counts minutes, counting down. He looks across the dining table, life partner buried in the New York Times, wonders if the day will be any different from any other. A small ache emerges from a place he cannot point to, longs for something he cannot see. It lingers in commuter traffic, switches lanes, merges, follows him through the parking lot, front lobby, up the elevator, through the long corridor to a room that swallows him whole. Letting go of the world outside, life is as simple as you make it, he thinks to himself, or as complicated.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's bring back Wesley for an encore. Wesley, back to you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for those wonderful, wonderful poems. What a privilege to share this time with all of you. I'm going to close with a poem that is about the mother of us all, Mother Nature. I have a very mixed relationship with Mother Nature, as do most of us. And this poem was written on a day when I was having a little difficulty with her. So it's called Mother Nature Drops By. A little discomfort is good for everyone, says Mother Nature, kicking off a boot, slapping a whip against her open hand. You know that, she tells me, or you wouldn't have moved to Maine. Keeps you awake, she says, that loss of control when your car fishtails, when the weather report is completely wrong, when your shoes fill to your ankles with slush right before a meeting. She's kicking off the other boot, unwinding clanky chains. Relax, she says, a pile of icicles resting in her lap. Sooner or later, I'll get bored with this game. An icicle whistles past my ear, decapitating a crocus. Sooner or later, she croons, in a voice as seductive as fresh snow at sunrise. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. This was indeed a privilege. Thank you.
Over to Richard for the last word. Richard?
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much, Wesley. It was wonderful to meet you. Now, you left behind a tremendous reputation when you left Long Island and moved to Maine. So it was great to meet you, and also your wonderful poems. And thanks again. It was really a great morning. And I don't know if you can see who's coming up next. Linda Dickman. So I had the pleasure of actually being with Linda Dickman this past Sunday. She had organized a reading of Poets Laureate, and including the new teen poet laureate, Connor and Laura Cersei. So one thing I would have to say, I was thinking about this after that meeting, that basically librarians, this was in the, I should mention, of course, in the Northport Library, librarians are really poetry impresarios in terms of their bringing together the public with poets. And so it's wonderful that we'll be seeing her in a month. And she's been very active. She's was in the school system in Northport. I learned for many years as a librarian, still as a librarian, also active in Northport's Arts Coalition, discussing possibly of establishing a Poets Walk in Northport later in the year. And her poems are well published. This just lists some of them. She was active in terms of the Bard's Initiative and served on its board. She's a current member of the Northport Arts Coalition and taught poetry to children for many, many decades, a very special thing. So I look forward to seeing her again in the next Saturday, which I believe is going to be on, I think, June 6th. No, I'm wrong, June 10th. So looking forward to seeing everyone at that time.
Thank you, and thank you for serving as such a wonderful poet laureate. I'll echo Kathy's words about how easy you were to work with and how gracious you always were, how well prepared you were. I think the sign of a true leader is the ability to generate followership. And that's something that you have, and we're grateful for it. And we hope that we'll continue to have you join us as we go forward.
Well, I hope to be here many times, and I'll be here certainly next month to to introduce the new Suffolk County Poet Laureate.